And the latest news concerning Iraq, which is something we will talk about at length during the course of the show with various guests, is that the U.S. is considering sending troops to help in the rescue of those people who are trapped up on the mountain, the persecuted minorities who are trying to escape ISIS, and that U.S. helicopters and U.S. troops may be used in that rescue effort. Now, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, it just speaks to the confusion, the lack of cohesiveness, the lack of a message when it comes to what we're doing in Iraq. As we've discussed on this show, last week the president talked about very targeted, very limited humanitarian effort, and then if the ISIS troops are coming towards our interests, being our people, our embassies, then we're going to strike them. Then he tells the New York Times we can't have a caliphate there. All right, that implies a much larger role, a much larger military mission, with much more frequent and larger strikes. Then, earlier this week, he backtracks and goes back to the original intent that he stated last week. And now we're hearing we might increase our humanitarian role by, in fact, putting boots on the ground, helping to evacuate those who are trapped and stranded. So whether you like it or disagree or agree, not the point. The point is, every day, this mission seems to be changing. And why can't we have a stated, cohesive policy? Is that too much to ask for? Is that too much to expect? Now, I know it might interfere with the golf schedule at Martha's Vineyard and the parties of Vernon Jordan's throwing. I know that. But, you know, priorities, just a little bit. All right, folks, we're going to go to Governor John Sununu here momentarily. But first, this has become, as I've told you yesterday, one of my favorite videos because it tells the story. Every picture tells a story, don't it? Watch.
In 2008, I promised we'd end the war in Iraq. We've ended it. I was able to keep my promise and end the war in Iraq. In 2008, I promised we would end the war in Iraq, and we've ended it. The war in Iraq is over. The war in Iraq is over from ending the war in Iraq. That's why I ended the war in Iraq. For the first time in 9 years, there are no Americans fighting in Iraq.
President, do you have any second thoughts about pulling all ground troops out of Iraq?
You know what I just find interesting is the degree to which this issue keeps on coming up, as if this was my decision.
You know, I will play that until the cows come home. And by the way, I don't know when the cows are coming home, but I've heard that expression for as long as I've been alive. John Sununu, former governor of New Hampshire and former chief of staff to President George H.W. Bush, joins us. And Governor, welcome. I got to tell you, I mean, that compilation and his claim at the press conference over the weekend that, you know, I didn't do this, it was the previous administration, should get such scrutiny, and it's really not getting it.
Well, you may be worried about when the cows come home, but the chickens are coming to roost. This is a presidency that's unraveling, and the self-delusion of this president is becoming more and more apparent. You know, he was proud of withdrawing the American troops, and now he's denying he did it. Unfortunately, he didn't understand when he did that withdrawal how detrimental that would be to world stability. And what he did there, that he was patting himself on the back so hard for in the clip you played, has been a disaster. He used Maliki's effort to negotiate tougher terms on the status of forces agreements as an excuse not to keep any forces there. Big mistake from a president who truly has no clue as to what the responsibility of the presidency is and how to deal strategically with tough issues.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. And before we get to more on that, and Hillary, let me jump ahead and just ask you, what's going to happen in Afghanistan? I mean, is this not just a precursor? We're going to see the same exact thing happen in Afghanistan once we leave there?
Look, it's not a happy situation, but the United States has a responsibility as the sole superpower to try and maintain stability. And it is a responsibility that comes with, if you will, the privilege of having the strength to do it and the capacity to do it. No one else does. And so I hope this president learns from his disastrous mistake of withdrawing from Iraq, and at least negotiates an agreement where we can keep enough American troops there to stabilize the Afghani fighting forces so they can stand up and withstand the kind of pressures that will come there.
All right, let's still go back and now talk about Hillary. You know, I don't know exactly what happened at that party that they were both at yesterday, but now the war between Hillary and Obama, where she criticized her own foreign policy. I mean, that basically that's really what she did. She's kind of, one of our guests yesterday said she's running away she's distancing herself from herself because she was she was the Secretary of State during the Syrian incident. She, according to Obama, supported that policy, and here she's criticizing Obama, criticizing his doctrine as don't do anything, wrong, don't do any wrong blank, and saying that's not good enough when she was part of that. How does she expect the American public to buy this?
Well, I look at it slightly differently. I think what she's trying to do is test the support she would get from the media by beginning to do things like that and distancing herself and, if you will, recreating a history for herself. And so she'd like to see how the liberal media react to that. And if she can get away with it, she will continue, in my opinion, to use the gullibility of the liberal media as a way of rewriting her own history. So the real issue is not so much that she's trying it, but the real issue is, how much does the liberal media fall for it?
Well, fall for it or accept it without question. Those are two possibilities, and I think it might be the latter.
Or both.
Or both. You never know. That's absolutely right. But there's so many issues to run away from. I mean, it's not only ISIS; it's Russia. She's already defended
It's Benghazi. It's reset in Russia. It's underestimating Putin. It's underestimating the difficulties in Iraq. It's underestimating Afghanistan. It's underestimating the fact that it's still a tough world, that you can't operate with utopian principles in a world where there are real bad people. And the entire administration, including everybody who served in it, is guilty of having put America and the world in this very unstable, very dangerous situation we're finding right now.
The chairman of the RNC, governor, said that he would hope it would be Hillary running in 2016 because they have so much on her, to use against her. Carly Fiorina, talking about winning women, said that Hillary is insignificant, really doesn't mean anything in their effort to convince women to vote Republican. Do you feel that Hillary would be would you prefer be Hillary against the Republican candidate in 2016, or would you prefer, from a win-loss perspective, that it be someone else?
Well, let me first of all say that I may be the odd perspective on all of this, but I still think it's more likely that she does not run than that she does run. I think the difficulties she's having are piling up, and I suspect that after the November elections, she and President Clinton, former President Clinton, and the family will gather to make a decision, and they understand politics. They'll put the things that they think are positive on one side of the ledger and the things that they don't think are so good on the other side. And I still think that if they make an honest assessment, she'll decide that with a combination of all kinds of things, including age and the fact that they know how tough it is to run for president, and what they'll face in terms of the intensity of the opposition, I still think it's more likely that she does not run than she does run.
All right, very interesting. Let me ask you this. We have Governor Chris Christie of New Jersey, my governor, unfortunately, and he's head of the Republican Governors Association, and he has come under lots of criticism for not only not supporting Rob Astorino against Governor Cuomo here in New York, but for announcing that it's a lost cause. I spoke to Ed Rollins about this. We had George Pataki here who was outraged, but Ed Rollins said in all of his years in politics, and that's a long time, he's never seen someone in a position such as that, head of Republican Governors Association, make such a statement and do such a thing and he's getting a lot of flack for not supporting, Rob Astorino. What's your take on that as a former governor?
Well, as a former head of the Republican Governors Association, I was a little surprised that Governor Christie let that kind of a slip come out of his mouth. I'd like to give him enough credit thinking it was a mistake to have said it. I'd like to give him enough credit to feel that perhaps he now regrets he said it, but it's awfully tough to take back once you've said it. I think it was a mistake. We all make mistakes, and maybe he can figure out a way to constructively deal with it by encouraging a lot of folks in New York to give some support.
Yeah. So you're not among those who are calling for his resignation because of that, from that position?
No, you can't do that. Look, we're in the midst of a campaign. We're 3 months away from the election. Let's not shoot ourselves in the foot after having put the foot to our forehead.
Right. But it won't help him it won't help him in his quest for the president, the nomination in 2016 if he goes that route, right?
Look, let's take it a step at a time. Let's encourage him to do everything he can to help us win as much as we can in terms of the Senate, the House, and governors in 2014.
Right.
Now, if he decides to run for president, I guarantee you, knowing how tough it is to run for president, all the candidates are going to make some gaffes, and this may end up looking insignificant compared to what he and the others are going to say in the year or so leading up to the New Hampshire primary, which, of course, as we know, is the most important part of the presidential process.
There you go. Governor, great to talk. I wonder why you said that. Great to talk to you, sir, as always. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
John Sununu, former governor of New Hampshire and former chief of staff to President George H.W. Bush, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. When we come back, the Malzberg panel, and we're going to focus on the shooting in Missouri and talk, get the opinion on both sides of that issue as the Steve Malzberg Show continues. Don't go away.